You know, here in the UK, workplace safety is all built around one single, really crucial piece of law. But what happens when people ignore it? Well, it's not just a slap on the wrist. The consequences can be, and often are, absolutely staggering. Let's dig into just how staggering we're talking about.
Take a look at this number, £6 million. Now that is not a lottery win. That is a fine, a single fine, handed out to just one organization for getting health and safety disastrously wrong. It's a pretty stark reminder that the cost of failure can be completely astronomical.
But here's the thing. Behind every one of these massive fines, there's always a devastating human story. This right here, this is the real personal cost of negligence, a cost that families have to live with every single day.
This was Jack Phillips. He was just 24 years old. And his story, and sadly so many others like it, is the whole reason these regulations exist in the first place.
So first up, let's explore the true scale of what happens when safety rules aren't just bent, but are completely and utterly broken.
Okay, the latest figures from the Health and Safety Executive, that's the HSE, they are just incredibly sobering. In just the last year, right here in Great Britain, 138 workers went to their jobs and never came home. And on top of that, a staggering 1.7 million more suffered from work-related ill health.
And beyond the awful human tragedy, there's this massive financial fallout. The estimated economic cost of all these injuries and illnesses every year is £21.6 billion. That's a cost that hits everyone, individuals, businesses, and the country as a whole.
So what's the actual legal framework that's supposed to prevent all of this? Let's take a quick look at the foundational law.
It pretty much all comes down to this one piece of legislation, the Health and Safety at Work Act of 1974. You could call it the cornerstone of UK workplace safety. Its whole purpose is to clearly lay out the fundamental duties that everyone in a workplace, everyone, shares.
And when you break down those duties, a really key idea comes to light. Of course, employers have a duty to provide a safe environment, proper training, all of that. But, and this is a big but, employees also have a legal duty to take reasonable care of themselves and the people around them. The bottom line is, safety is a shared legal responsibility. It's on everybody.
So we've got the law, we've got the duties laid out. But what actually happens on the ground when they're just ignored? Let's look at a couple of real-world examples.
Right, so at a plastics manufacturer in Kent, a worker was just walking to get some materials, something he'd done 1,000 times. But on this particular day, he was hit by a forklift truck and he suffered multiple fractures to his legs.
When the HSE investigated, they found a complete breakdown of procedure. There was no documented safe system for managing people and vehicles in the same space. Actually, the CCTV footage showed it was basically a free-for-all, with people and trucks constantly getting way too close for comfort.
And the price for that failure? A £400,000 fine. A huge penalty, all for not putting in place some really basic, common-sense safety measures.
Now here's a totally different kind of incident. A contractor was hired to put solar panels on the roof of this skate park. He took one step backward and fell 30 feet straight through a fragile skylight.
Now get this, the risk assessment they did actually pointed out the danger. You know what he called for? Cones and tape. That was it. It was completely inadequate. The skylights weren't covered properly, and the safety scaffolding they needed wasn't even fully built. It's just a textbook case of failing to actually follow through on a safety plan.
In this case, both the main contractor and the subcontractor were held responsible. Their combined fines and costs came to over £120,000. It just goes to show you can't just pass the buck down the chain when it comes to safety.
So with the stakes being this incredibly high, how can businesses make sure they're compliant and, way more importantly, actually keeping their people safe?
I mean, this is the question that really matters, isn't it? It's the one that every single business owner, every manager, every team leader needs to be able to answer with 100% confidence.
Well, thankfully, the HSE gives us a pretty simple framework to follow. It's a cycle that just keeps going. First, you plan your approach. Then you do what you've planned. Assess the risks, put controls in place. Then you check to make sure it's all working. And finally, you act on what you've learned to review and improve the whole system. It's a loop, not a one-and-done task.
And that big framework really breaks down into 5 practical, absolutely non-negotiable actions. You have to appoint someone competent, You must assess your risks, you've got to have a written policy, you have to provide training, and, maybe the most important one, you have to talk to your employees. You have to consult with them, because they are the ones on the ground who know the real risks better than anyone.
Okay, so let's bring all this together. Because when you get right down to it, this isn't really about regulations or fines. It's about people.
This is the HSE's principal inspector, and he's talking about the death of Jack Phillips, who we saw right at the beginning. And the key phrase here, the one that should really stick with you, is wholly avoidable. These aren't just unfortunate accidents, they are preventable tragedies.
So the real takeaway is this. Being compliant with the law isn't about ticking boxes or filling out a bunch of forms. It's about a fundamental moral duty of care. It's about making absolutely sure that every single person you work with gets to go home to their families safely at the end of every single day.
And that really just leaves us with one final thought. After seeing all of this, I want you to think about your own workplace. Right now, what's the one process, the one piece of equipment, or that one corner of the building that, honestly, probably needs a second look?